Hey, it's Liam here from Bradley's in Rotorua, and today I'll be reviewing a 2025 Tenere 700 Yamaha. I haven't ridden these bikes a hell of a lot, but I've spent a little bit of time on them, maybe sort of 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers now, compared to riding a KTM 890 majority of the time. But because the dealership sells both Yamaha and KTM, it's always good to ride both, so then you can give a good feedback to the customer or anyone watching this video on what I think is the differences between riding an older style Tenere versus the new one with the tech upgrades, etc., and also riding a KTM 890. This is sort of on the cuff, so some stuff I might get wrong, and but be sure to fact check me and put it in the comments below. Before I start the review, this video is brought to you by Yamaha Financial Services, which is an independent team that works at Yamaha and offer finance services for Kiwis trying to buy motorbikes that need some financial help. One of the amazing things they do is a 5.95% farm finance, which always comes super handy when farmers are looking to upgrade their bike. Now to the video of the Tenere 700 and the upgrades it received for 2025. Some of the basic things we'll talk about that didn't really change too much is some things like the sort of 16-litre tank that it carries, the weight of 195 when it's dry, that sort of stuff all came over from the previous generation bike to the new generation bike, as well as the bike runs a 21-inch front wheel and a 18-inch rear wheel, which is all pretty standard stuff that I'm sure if you're watching this video you probably already know that. I tend to ride more on gravel and sort of off-road riding than more tar seal, so I already swapped out the standard tyres from the standard ones to a Dunlop 606 on the front and a Dunlop 908 on the rear, just to provide me a little bit more traction when we do the off-road sections, which you'll see some of those in the video today. The Tenere for me is, it's priced at 20,299 in New Zealand, I think it is. So it's just over the $20,000 mark, and if you compare that to say a KTM 890, which is about $27,000 in New Zealand, there's obviously a bit of a price difference. Now everyone likes to compare different bikes, whether it be the Honda Transalp 700 or the KTM 890, KTM 690, the Tenere 700, the Tenere World Raid, the CF Moto 450. I think a lot of people do compare different bikes, but the ones that I've ridden and the differences between them, they're also different, that neither really one of them you can sort of compare at the same time, if that makes sense. Like a lot of people I know love to compare this Tenere 700 to a KTM 890, but for me personally, when I'm riding them, they are actually so far apart that it doesn't even really come close to a comparison. If that's just my personal opinion, I'm not trying to offend anyone, but the KTM 890 is in a league of its own and the Tenere 700 is in a league of its own. I haven't ridden the Transalp 700 either, but I'm sure that's in a league of its own. So when you talk about comparing the different bikes, well, it's hard to really compare them because you're really buying something that's sort of suited to that market or to that customer. So there's no real comparison to be made from my point of view. You're either in that price point, in that bike bracket of what you're wanting to use that bike for, or you're not. You're not trying to get what the KTM 890 can do, but a cheaper version with the Tenere 700 and try and make that do what the KTM 890, that doesn't happen, okay? So the KTM 890 does what it does, the Tenere 700 does what it does, the CF Moto 450 does what it does. There's no, oh, this does, you know, that better than that and that. Well, you get what you pay for at the end of the day, I think, with these adventure bikes, and yeah, that's sort of all I got to say about that. So the Tenere 700 for me is something that I find to be super nice on the road, very nice on the gravel, and also it is a good bike off-road. It has obviously the dirt bike sort of style look, but there obviously, when I compare it to say a KTM 890, it definitely isn't as nice off-road as a KTM 890. The 890 definitely has, with the tanks being down low, which a lot of people don't like, you know, that lower center of gravity definitely helps it when you come to riding it fully off-road on the dirt as well as in the gravel. But the power delivery of the Tenere 700 is what makes it so smooth when you do get to off-road or gravel sections. So it's actually very rideable for what you'd say is most of the riders riding these bikes. The power delivery, it's 72 horsepower this engine, it's a parallel twin. So the 72 horsepower, the way it sort of comes on, it's a nice torquey motor, nice and smooth delivery. So when you're riding the gravel roads and stuff, it's very smooth, and when you give it a handful of throttle, it's not sort of stepping out the back end or anything like that, and it is very controllable, which is what you want, especially when you come to riding the gravel. And then another thing where having a motor that's not super powerful, or I mean it is powerful, but the way the power comes on, the torque delivery that it gives you, because also in this 25 model they shortened, I believe, the airbox, which also made it torqueier again compared to the 24 model. And with that power delivery, when you do ride it off-road, it actually helps you to get traction because you don't have 105 horsepower going to the ground, you have 72 horsepower. So when you're off-road and working in the dirt, then the Tenere seems to be able to hook up a little bit better if you're running a good tyre on the rear because of the power delivery it gives you and the smoothness it comes through from that parallel twin. Obviously Yamaha uses the engine in a range of their bikes, and it's super reliable and goes really, really well. A couple of other things to mention obviously for the 2025 with the upgrades is the suspension. They worked on providing a better suspension package for the customer when they're buying it right out of the showroom floor. That's obviously the previous generation's Teneres everyone's always talking about, you know, oh, the suspension's got to be upgraded, blah, 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 blah. Well, it's tough to say because what you pay for this bike is a very well priced bike versus, let's say, a KTM 890, which is very well priced as well. But if you're trying to, that's what I mean, when you're trying to compare this Tenere to a KTM 890, the 890 suspension hands down is better than this stock. But the thing is, you're not paying as much, so if you want to spend a little bit of money on the suspension, you can. So for 2025, they have an adjustable front fork, both compression and rebound, which they haven't had in the previous model Teneres. And then as well as the rear shock, they lengthened the shock shaft, as well as put a different linkage on them to provide a better feel in the rear. As I say, I haven't ridden the previous generation Tenere a heck of a lot, so I can't really comment on how much that felt better, but just from riding it myself, it's a pretty nice shock. Yes, when you get into some super tight or super rough off-road stuff, it definitely doesn't feel as good as well, I'd say a stock KTM 890 does, but it's still probably a little bit soft on the soft side, but I still believe it is a very nice and comfortable bike to ride on the gravel as well as on the road and some of the more basic trails when you go to dirt. It's just when you go to that more gnarlier dirt stuff that the suspension definitely sort of, I guess we'd say maybe lets it down. Lets it down is probably the wrong word. It's probably not quite built for that customer that's riding a super gnarly off-road, like say your Poltares, etc, etc. So that's to talk about the suspension. But having a soft suspension, like on the Tenere, actually makes it super enjoyable to ride on the gravel, because the way it's, so when you're sort of coming into the corners and stuff like that, the suspension actually allows, being a little bit softer, allows to sort of settle into the corner as you sort of come in under brake, and you sort of the bike starts to squat down a little bit, and actually gives you a little bit more of a planted feel than the previous generation Tenere 700. So you come into the corner, the bike sort of squats down a little bit, and you sort of can go around the corner, which is nice. And I definitely noticed that from the previous generation Tenere, even though the suspension's been upgraded on this and it's meant to be firmer, I think the adjustments they made to the suspension actually makes it sit into a corner a heck of a lot nicer on the gravel, which is awesome. One of the cool benefits, obviously, well, I mean, some people will say it's a benefit, some people will say it's bad, but it's obviously the electronic upgrades, and a lot of that comes from the throttle. Obviously gone from your conventional cable throttle to your fly-by-wire throttle. So by having a fly-by-wire throttle, the engine control unit, obviously the ECU, is then able to control what that throttle is doing through the electronic package that it has now. So to have those I guess electronic upgrades for the 2025 model is awesome. You have two different ride modes with this bike. You have Sport as well as Explore. Your Sport mode is a bit more obviously fun, exciting, probably the mode that I would ride it majority in, and the Explore one is obviously a little bit softer and the power sort of comes on a bit smoother. So that's cool. Two new upgrades. Some people don't like the fact that now it's got this fly-by-wire throttle, because obviously the Tenere 700 was known conventionally as a bike that is, when you're out on the trails, etc., you can easily fix it, and you know, you can, yeah, if it breaks down, you can easily, I guess, get it going again, is what people would say. But I think having a fly-by-wire throttle is cool because it gives you those electronic upgrades, which sort of brings it into sort of that KTM 890 sort of style of where it has all the options for the tech pack and the traction control as well as the ABS, etc., different modes. So yes, it's probably not as conventional like the standard Tenere, or you know, the Tenere 2024 and 2023 was, but I think having fly-by-wire is cool and an awesome upgrade for the Tenere. Obviously all of that is controlled through the new 6.3 inch display, which is cool. It's obviously got color in it, and you can obviously see the different modes and stuff you're in, as well as adjust your 3 ABS settings, where you have ABS fully on, ABS off on the rear, on the front, and then ABS completely off. So that's pretty cool, as well as being able to change your traction control settings, and you can still run traction control completely off on this Tenere. So when you want to have a good rip around in the dirt, you still definitely can do that, which is pretty awesome. That the modes button is right here by the throttle, so super easy to change. And then you do have a what they call a 5 direction switch over here, which helps you navigate your way through the screen, and that all makes it sort of pretty easy, I guess, to operate the bike. What else? It's hard to say. This Tenere, they are a very good bike to buy if you are looking at riding a lot of gravel and a lot of road and some basic dirt tracks. Then I think it's very hard to look past the Tenere, especially with the price that it is, just tipping over $20,000 here in New Zealand. If you want, as a person that sells both KTM and Yamaha, we always find if someone has come from a very heavy off-road background, you're sort of enduro racer, you're cross-country racer, or you're motocross person looking to then transfer over into the adventure scene, you always tend to get those sort of people going down the KTM route, the KTM 890, just because it's known as the more off-road bike, and riding them both, it 100% is, there's no question about it. The KTM is definitely more off-road focused, and it is still extremely nice on the road as well. But this Tenere is extremely nice for people. Often find that people that haven't ridden, they would have ridden off-road when they were 20, 30 sort of thing, and then sort of had a break when they had kids and stuff like that, and life sort of got in the way, and then when they're jumping sort of back into it, a lot of those sort of people will jump to a Tenere because it's a very good bike. You know, no one's really riding the off-road stuff like your Poltares, your Chris Birches, you know, so a Tenere can pretty much do 100% of what people are really wanting to get from it. And yeah, I guess a big thing is with the Yamaha, everyone talks about is the reliability of their engine, and the fact Japanese built, you know, it is hard to go past that. Have I missed anything talking about the Tenere? No, I think that is pretty much it. Obviously, a couple of differences. They had a new headlight display as well. New headlight, the basic part of the bike all looks pretty similar. They did get the upgraded foot pegs on this bike, as well as which came off, I believe, the World Raid bike. I have ridden the World Raid 2023 model. I have ridden that a little bit as well. Obviously the World Raid has the twin tank, which carries 23 litre capacity, as well as the upgraded suspension, are some of the main things. I do enjoy riding the World Raid as well. If anyone wants a little bit of feedback on the World Raid, I do enjoy riding that World Raid. I do find the tanks give us a little bit more stability on the gravel than the stock Tenere. I do still find the stock Tenere with the weight a little bit higher, it probably doesn't give me that sort of lower center of gravity feeling like an 890 would, but the World Tenere obviously is closer to that. So it's only purely because I've ridden the KTM 890 so much that the World Raid probably feels closer to home to me than the standard Tenere with the way that the weight is distributed. I believe with 25 and this engine and stuff, I could have this wrong, but I believe they tilted it back 2 degrees, so it did have a better lower center of gravity. As I said, I can't really comment on that because I don't really know. I didn't ride the normal 24 enough to sort of feel that change into the 2025 one. But obviously the look of the bike is all pretty similar to 2024. Obviously the way it looks, this sort of single seat, the rally style seat, and yeah, if you got any questions or anything that I can help with, I'm more than happy to help. Just drop the comments below in the channel, and look forward to doing another review soon. And thank you to Yamaha Financial Services for helping put this video together. And yeah, awesome. Thank you.